Hello, and welcome to the Sacred Heart Shaman podcast, where we talk about spiritual healing, shamanic wisdom, and the challenges of walking the healer's path. My name is Nadia Hrynkiw, and today is episode number 46. We are talking about our travel experience in Rome. This intro was recorded post podcast recording, and I just want to let you know it's a little bit of a longer podcast because this is a really fun and deep topic. My best friend and I talk about our experience in the city, shamanically, physically, emotionally, and all the things associated with this trip. At the end of the podcast, we also mention some information about how to do this kind of travel with us. And we are announcing our first public trip, which will be to Romania in 2026. I hope you enjoy the podcast today, and thank you for listening. Okay. Thank you for joining me on the podcast today. On this episode, my friend and co-facilitator Rebecca and I are going to be talking about our trip to Rome, which was in April, May of this year, 2025, to dive a little bit more deeply on the topic of shamanic travel, transformational travel, and give you an insider's look of how it is to travel in this style, not just by myself, but with another person. So Rebecca, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and telling everybody a little bit about you and how you got here with me.
Uh, First of all, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to share our experience together. My name is Rebecca. I um, work part time as a licensed massage therapist, and the other part, I'm actually building a shamanic business as well. Um, we have different outlooks on things, and uh, yeah, so I'm excited to share.
Yay, thank you. So I'd like to share a little bit of background about me and Rebecca. We have been friends slash working together for several years now and have slowly grown closer on the friendship level versus the professional or client level. And it's becoming apparent that Rebecca is one of the few people that I know who does legitimate shamanic work, who's able to touch that realm and to take others there as well. So we've moved from professional relationship to personal relationship. And I think we're going in the direction of partnership in terms of business, if that's what you want to call it. Community building is probably a better word for it. So we're going to talk about Rome. This is going to be a lengthy podcast. And if you're joining us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, there will be a video version of this on YouTube. So go ahead and check it out if you haven't yet got to see me speak live, or if you just want to watch for fun. So we're going to start with before Rome and what came up for each of us leading up to this experience. Because with this type of work, it's important that we're not just looking at the peak experience, like the big exciting thing, that we're looking at all of the things around it, leading up to it, integrating after it, all the details during. So we're going to start there. And Rebecca, tell us a little bit about
Sure.
what came up for you when you decided that you were going to go to Rome with me.
Yeah. I remember when you asked, it was a clear yes, like automatic yes. And then a little bit of panic starts to set in. Like, oh, okay, I've never done this before. And I'm going to be heading completely in the dark on this. And, like I trust you because you've been on these travel experiences. So, there was more ease. But as we got closer, my fear of travel was pretty intense. It was intense. And it was all of these, the small things like the passport, is it going to come in time? And what if I miss my flight because we have to take multiple flights to meet up? And, all the pieces that have to link together in order for it to flow. Um, I'm noticing that are like these panic moments that I'm having as we get closer and closer to going. Um, it was interesting because I did also find myself, we had, months while essentially you were planning um, our trip, and I noticed that I was kind of shutting out how I was feeling about it because every time I thought about it, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't, this anxiety takes over me. And I didn't want to feel that, even though I knew building up, like once we got there, it would be okay and it would settle. But for months, I had this feeling when I would think about it, and you would check in with me, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I'm excited." I'm like, I did some reading, but like when I was putting myself in the position of actually going, there was this initial panic, and um, that point where I would have to fly out by myself and go to this city that I've never been to, um, was really scary to me, and it was interesting because it's not like I hadn't flown or traveled by myself. That's all I've done. I just had never left the country. Um, and also, in my past, I'm very connected to my dream world, and I've had a lot of reoccurring dreams throughout my life of traveling in foreign countries and like fiasco happening. So it was like, okay, is this reality? Is there something I should be cautious about? Or, you know, obviously there's something there. Um, but yeah, and another thing that came up was um stuff with my relationship. So that kind of blew up over the few months leading up to that my partner has been taking care of his father who lives with us that's got advanced dementia and requires full-time care, and all the aspects of his sacrificing our relationship so that he could fulfill his obligation, or his felt obligation, to care for his father. And so all of these things just kind of blew up, and so it was interesting to observe that. And actually, the day before we flew out, I pulled him aside and I was like, okay, we need to talk about this. This is what's happening for me. I can't leave the country and not, let you know what's going on in my head about all of this. And so we had the conversation, just letting him know how I felt about it. And, either you're going to make a move and you're going to try to make this better, or ease the situation in some way, because it's not my responsibility. But please be aware that it is affecting all of us and how it is. Um, so that was a major, major like upheaval um, during the time we were leading up to leaving for Rome. So, yeah.
And do you find that you have major life upheavals around transformational experiences? Like if you're about to embark on a big transformation, that your life starts to erupt beforehand?
Right. So all of the structures start presenting themselves, and then they start breaking apart. And then, of course, I have to have those awkward conversations with people, um, you know, to make them aware. That's been learned over time, of course, but yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's always the digging up of things.
For sure.
Okay, I have no choice as to approach this or not. Like it's happening. Yeah.
And I think it's good to be aware of that before you have the experience so that you can prepare for it and like get support. And you and I, talked about it too to kind of process through. And yeah, that was a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
So, I don't know if you want me to share more, or like, yeah, my entire
Um, I mean, it's up to you.
leading
It's
up
up to you
to.
how deep you want to go into it. I know those were
Mhm.
kind of the big ones, the extreme fear and then the stuff with your partner.
Yeah. Okay. Um, yeah. I mean, those are like the major things. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Yeah. No, I know we're gonna have a lot to cover in Rome. So for me, I've only traveled internationally, like by myself, and of course, and a little bit with my family, but I've always been like the one in control. So the one planning the itinerary and doing all the research and um, counting all the funds and like keeping track. And this one was really hard for me because, you know, we were coming in from different financial backgrounds at the time, like the financial investment and like how we got to this place of planning this trip. And so I struggled with like a ton of guilt, a ton of shame. Um, and then every time I went to go like create our schedule, because I do it on a spreadsheet because I'm a lunatic, um, it felt wrong. And I had to force myself to create this schedule and to plan out our days and to buy our tickets in advance. And like if it went wrong, if it could go wrong, it went wrong with regard to the tickets. And we'll talk about that later. Um, and, you know, as it turns out, Rome was mostly asking us not to have any plans, but to just kind of wing it. And that was hard for me. And watching myself push through that before we even got there was kind of agonizing. It felt like struggle, just struggle. And I didn't recognize that that's what it was. And then I was also like learning this lesson of divine timing and divine flow with money, not panicking about like not having all the full funds that I was going to get made into euros when we got there. And like trusting that it would come before we left and trusting that the dog boarding place would work out. There was a lot of surrender, 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 and let go of control. That was my huge theme coming up. And then also accepting help, like accepting, you know, for you to front this thing or accepting help from my parents while I was planning the trip. So those were, I mean, those are huge things I think most of us struggle with, the control and surrender, and then the accepting help. And then like a week before, maybe 2 weeks before I left for Rome, I flew out to Washington to file that contempt motion against my ex-husband. And, you know, that triggered a whole series of events with regard to my custody and, you know, all of the crazy shit that's happened since then. And all of that was definitely wrapped up in Rome. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Um, so, you know, I want to address the what happened leading up because when we have these big experiences, it's important to know that that's part of the process and to lean into it with support instead of like pulling back and panicking and canceling. Because I know for me, that's what happens a lot of the times. If I'm not aware, I pull back and I'm like, oh shit, maybe I made the wrong decision. And so I just wanted to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because the Rome story really is the fun, interesting story. I don't even know like where to start with that, except like at the beginning. Yeah, so it's also interesting, Rebecca, for you to be on the experiencing end of like, hey, Nadia set this whole thing up, and like, let's see what goes wrong and what works out and what doesn't, and that's gotta be fun because it wasn't you. Um, but we'll start with the Coliseum day because that was the first like fuck up day. So tell me how you experienced that. That was the day we went to the Roman Forum and the Coliseum, or we were
Yeah.
supposed to go to the Coliseum.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Man, from the beginning, it was interesting because, you know, we planned the night before because we knew that the transportation was not super reliable and we needed to be there early in order to get in to the Coliseum. And I'm over here like, I really want to see it, but I'm kind of tired. But like, yeah, doing everything we could to leave early in order to catch the bus. And um, those hiccups with the transportation that were just happening like in perfect timing. We get to the bus on time, like with plenty of time, and we're waiting and waiting and waiting. It's like, is this bus going to happen? Just those pockets of time that I felt like we were in these like time warps, like this crossover, this invisibility like pocket that we
Mhm.
would get stuck in at these bus stations. And like
There's that
Me
surrender
knowing,
theme.
yeah, me knowing like we have to be there early in order to experience this. We have our tickets, whatever. Like Nadia planned all this. I know like she really wants to be there. I know I really want to be there. But, it was not just my experience of having difficulty with the standing and walking, and magnified that by having to wait so long for buses, but the push and like this need to be there on time, but also carrying like your frustration with needing to be there and like, this isn't working out. And, I wanted to create this thing that isn't playing out the way that I planned it. Um, but when we got there and hiked up the massive staircase, it was like, at that point we had already decided that, okay, like we're not going to make it to the Coliseum. Like we have forum tickets, let's go.
Oh yeah.
So,
Side note here, we didn't go to the Coliseum.
right. Oh, right. Yeah. We didn't end up going because we had to wait for so many buses. And um we talked about it on our journey to get there, and just like, we're not supposed to go. Like, okay, for some reason unknown, we're not supposed to go to the Coliseum. We, together with these tickets, we can get into the forum. So let's just
Right.
go directly there. They're open like literally right now, anyways. So perfect timing.
Right.
Um,
And like we had those tickets because I bought the wrong tickets. Like I bought Forum plus Super Site tickets, which were only gave us access to the Coliseum on like some kind of weird um what is it called? Like a stage, like a platform. We wouldn't
right,
even have been able to go inside the Coliseum. Like this is the funny part. Like so scrapping it was, I don't know, it just made sense. It was like, okay, I guess we're not supposed to go.
right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And at that point, I was okay with it. Um, but walking up to the forum was like this confirmation of like, oh yeah,
Mm,
okay, we're supposed to be here. Like this is where we're supposed to be. And even, that railing that they had, we walk over and you can see inside the forum. I'm like, I want to be in there. Oh, that's
right.
where we're going. Oh, okay. Yeah, it was like, come, welcome home, come. Um,
And
yeah,
it was a total welcome home. Like
it
there was
really,
nobody else in there. And as soon as we walked in, it was just like, oh my God, we've been here before. And it was not
yeah,
as humans.
exactly, exactly. And that was the crazy part. Like as soon as they let us through the gate, that like, like welcome home, and yeah, we not as humans. Yeah, it was like this celebration of you're finally here. Yeah.
Totally.
Of course,
Yeah.
the
And
tears are falling. I'm like, what is happening right now? We literally just walked in this place. We both have to walk away and have our moment for a second.
oh yeah, like we did that constantly too. Just these
Yeah.
moments of remembering and gratitude and sacredness and like tears and like, oh, what the fuck? What is going on right now?
Yeah. Yeah. It was it was really amazing to share that with someone.
Mm,
Like it wouldn't have been as powerful, I think, or it just would have been a different experience being by yourself. But like walking in and then like feeling that, but then also sharing that experience with you, Nadia,
totally. Totally.
and like having that confirmation of like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is really happening.
Yeah, and to
Yeah.
be witnessed like on that kind of level, to me, I think it's such a rare thing, and I've only really experienced it in plant medicine ceremony where somebody will look at me and they're like, "Nadia, I can feel your soul." And I'm like, "Yeah, I can feel your soul too." And you and I are having this experience,
Right.
no psychedelics required,
Right.
just following the whim of the universe to take us to this place. It was just beyond words.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
For me, when we walked in, yeah, it was also very clear that there was an echo. We'd been there before, and not only just not as humans, but it felt like as giants and or some kind of like out of this world kind of being. And then the size of the forum, the size of the pillars, all of a sudden made sense. And I don't know about you, but I've always been drawn to those, like, I think there's a word for it. It's like giantism in architecture or something, those extra large buildings. I've
Right.
always been drawn to it. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure they built this for like giants and gods and goddesses. And maybe
Yeah.
those are the same things. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was very clear what was built for humans and what was built for the giants or the gods. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And we both kind of felt that throughout the whole trip. Like it's like you could feel the truth and the
For
falsehood,
sure.
or you could feel like what was intended for humans and what was intended for sacred or for gods.
Right.
That was wild.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So real kind of testing of the intuition, and then having it like confirmed by another person was, I mean, where do you get the opportunity to do that?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely everywhere we went, it was very clear on what was plugged in as narrative, like this is distraction or distortion in
Mhm,
some way, um, versus like, oh, okay, like I can feel this like cell deep
mhm.
and this is truth and like vibing with it, like resonating with it. Like,
Right.
yeah, yeah, it
Right.
was the craziest experience to have. And yeah, like you said, again, having someone else confirming that they're feeling that too and sharing that experience was like mind blowing, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, the vulnerability, the ability and opportunity to have such vulnerability and to have such connection, yeah, just stellar. And podcast listeners, you will know out through this trip, there is a theme here. And we kind of picked up on it immediately on this first location. And that was something about history has been hidden or covered up or destroyed or forgotten. And it kind of felt like we went on a scavenger hunt for truth. And everywhere that we went was like, oh, this is true, or this is not, or this was made for deception, or this was made for illumination. Like there is a larger story happening that is kind of going to weave in and out of this conversation as we
Right.
share.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so let's talk about like, okay, the Santa Maria Antiqua, which was the first building that we entered hilariously.
Yes.
Um, I'll say for me, going into this building was, I'm not really a church person. I wasn't raised with it. And this is a really, really old building. As I understand it, it was pagan dwellings, and then churches were built on top of it, and then other things. So it was made into many different types of buildings. But when we saw it, it was a church. And I want to say it was like 500, 600 BC. I'm not really, or AD. I'm not really sure. And it's old and cool. But I'm walking around and I get to this back room. I talked about this a little bit in the Saints podcast, and I felt like this incredible urge to fall to my knees and just start weeping. And it felt like I was feeling God for the first time, like total divine connection. And, I got to say, I do meditation work and I do shamanic work, and I've sat with ayahuasca and with psilocybin, and I do all the things that you're supposed to do to connect to yourself, to connect to the other side or God. And I'd never felt it until that moment. And that set the stage for the entire trip. And it's still setting the stage for the entire trip. And when the words scrolled up on, like, they have these cool projector things that tell you what the room is for and who was there, what's on the walls. And as I was reading like the projector scripts, I could see that it was the room of the medical saints. Having no religious background, I didn't know what saints were. And so that also sent me on a little bit of a wild goose chase throughout the trip. and connected back to a soul retrieval piece that has been integrating since we got home. So that was like the first dwelling that we went into, and that was the experience that I had. Now, Rebecca has you have a different background with religion.
Yeah, absolutely. I was raised Christian. I don't really have or didn't have a whole lot of experience with Catholicism. It was always, I was raised with, well, our religion's better than that religion type of thing. Like ours is right, the really toxic dynamic within religion and Christianity. And walking into that place for me was like, this place is sacred. This has been used for sacred work. You can feel it. You get full body goosebumps, and it's insane. Like, it brings tears to your eyes, really, really.
Totally.
And like the energetic, like, I don't know, imprint left behind, and it just like fills your body. It's amazing.
And
Yeah.
out of all the other places we went, which were so many cathedrals and so many churches and the Vatican, not one other place had a feeling like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. This was special. It was a special place. Yeah, for sure. It was definitely, it set the tone for the trip. And in my experience, because it was like, I have this hardened view of religion at this point in my life. I completely shut it out, and religion, and um because of my experience and how I was raised and what I was taught to believe, think, feel, act, speak, all of the things. And so it
Religious
really
trauma
was
at its
like,
finest.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was like, oh my gosh, this is what originally, like, this is how it was supposed to feel. Like, this is the impact that it was intended to make,
Hmm.
that visceral, like, ease and just awe, truly. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think later I found out that this was one of the places they used to do some kind of practice where people would sleep in the church and the saints would work on them. Like they would get healing just by sleeping in these dwellings, which is very shamanic.
Right.
When I like host a group and we all stay in the same house overnight or sleepovers or whatever, like I'm working on those people all the time, or they're visiting you in their sleep, or like we're having interactions. And so
For sure.
that concept too is really cool. I had never heard of that before.
Yeah. Yeah. Super fascinating. Like,
Yes.
duh, obviously.
Let me see. I took a couple notes about after we went to the forum. Like there were things that started to emerge. Like we need to do some research on giants and gods and goddesses. And then I came across something that I'd never heard before, titans and like
Mhm.
primordial gods. And that felt like it came up a lot. And so titans were like the ones who originally ruled the cosmos. And then there was some other god situation where it shifted, but like the original gods were Earth, Uranus,
Right.
and there was like a resounding feeling of these primordial gods in Rome, I would say. It felt very
Yeah.
old, very original, very pure compared to what we think of like mythology. We have these like complicated gods and goddesses.
Right.
For me, the energy that we felt there was very pure and very
Yeah.
strong.
No, absolutely. Yeah. It almost made it confusing to think about, okay, like I've never done a whole lot of research, but like this god in this country is referred to as, Odin, and in this country, in this cultural background, it's the same god, but they're referred to as, whatever. And it was like, okay, so is this just another piece of um narrative, like
Mhm.
people taking like religion and twisting it to be their own thing. This was like foundational. It was like, this is what it is for real. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And that's been my experience with shamanism too, is that as it gets commercialized and monetized, there's a dilution. And so that's why I
Yeah.
call what I do primordial shamanism, because it is very pure and it also has a lot of power. I think that's one thing we both experienced too out there, was there was a lot of original power. And then
Yeah.
it was somehow controlled or dispersed or hidden. And yeah, that was also a theme.
For sure. Yeah. Definitely a theme. Yeah. I mean, even prior to leaving for Rome, there was this feeling, having the Pope die a week before we leave
Oh my God, we didn't even talk
was
about that.
something you can't, I mean, we could never have even, it was just crazy, but that feeling of this new distribution of power
Mhm.
was very strong. Yeah.
Yes, and we
Yeah.
will talk about the Pope and about the Vatican, but on the note of power, I think it was like a week and a half in, we were sitting and having lunch somewhere, and I just started crying. Like I was overcome with this emotional wave because I felt like I was getting the message that one of my jobs here is to redistribute the power. And somehow that was involved with the church consolidating power and like funneling it into the church,
Yeah.
somehow connected. And the job, I don't know if it's my job or if it's a shared job, is to redistribute that power.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Which is a very feminine thing. If you think of animism and everything has a soul and everything has its own power, all that power is distributed. Like you don't go to one place to get it.
Very much so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. I have a lot of notes. So we're gonna bounce a little bit back and forth here. Um, yeah, can we talk about like the dreamscape of when we were out there? Because my dreams were unhinged and nonstop. In the first couple days, I felt like I was just in a fucking trance and could not sleep.
Okay.
Do you remember
Yeah.
that for you?
Mine was a little different. Yeah, for sure. Um, I don't remember having, I think I had a couple nightmares, but I don't remember them vividly. And honestly, I feel like the entire trip was a dream.
Yeah.
Like during that time, like the whole time we were there, I didn't know what, like, I could not separate when we were sleeping versus when we were out and about because I felt like it was the same thing.
Right.
So, like, visions in my dreams that I remember, no. Like, did I sleep at all?
Did we?
I have no idea. I felt like, yeah, like the first week and a half, no.
Well, until we went to Naples and then it all went to shit, or it all got better. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh.
Yeah, that was definitely a crazy experience. Yeah.
Well, for me, I remember it was like the first night or two that I got there, I had a dream about my ex-husband. And at the risk of being extremely personal, there's a theme here with my ex-husband as well. So I was having a dream of being sexually violated and literally getting off on it and having like this whole broader story of wanting men that don't actually like me, like just to be wanted, just to not be alone. And it's very much tied to the soul retrieval piece that I brought back from Rome. And so that came up really strong. And then again, the whole going to court right before I left, and that's continued since. So there's like a huge unraveling for me around toxic relationship and the trauma that caused me to choose toxic relationships, and it was past life trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that was awful, but fine. Um, okay, we also had several places that we weren't allowed to go, that like the universe cut us off from. Do you
Right.
remember what they were?
There were a couple museums. Um, there was the Colosseum, the Pantheon, which was like the weirdest place ever. Like, what even is that place? was so bizarre. Like, we weren't supposed to go there, and any information we brought up, like, people are buried there, but they're artists, and like, why are these specific artists buried there, and what actually was the Pantheon designed for? And then also that museum we went into that had the room that was like designed as the inside of the Pantheon,
Mhm.
and it was like displaying each one of these gods and goddesses, and you're like, wait a second, what is actually happening here? Um, there were very conflicting stories and information about it. And like, finally, when we walked by it, I remember thinking, like, oh, that's the Pantheon? Like, why is it here? Almost like it wasn't originally there.
Yeah.
Like, it was placed there from
Yeah, they're
somewhere else. And
so weird.
like I remember the sky even. I have a picture. The sky was even like appeared to be like altered, like AI. Like it wasn't actually real. It was weird.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
And I think that's also, so there's a couple different levels of that. I think there are a lot of things that are false, and we are taught we have the opportunity to learn how false feels. So like we tried to go there, it felt weird and wrong. The tickets
Yeah,
didn't work out. I like the
right.
website kept not working for me. We couldn't fit it into the itinerary, even though it was in a very central location. And every time we tried, we were just like, that doesn't feel right.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then like researching it, I remember you researching everybody that was buried there, and they were like famous artists from certain eras, which tied into this this information that I got a download about, which was only certain artists were allowed to paint art or display their art, and they had to follow a very specific prescription of what they could paint.
Right. Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yes.
so it was
Right.
like the people who were buried there were all the creators of this fake story about Catholicism.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. The ones that followed suit.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Mhm.
And then as far as like not being able to physically go, my personal belief around that is when the energy is harmful or could potentially be harmful to us, we get a very strong no, like you're not allowed to go there. It could be dangerous. And that's what I felt with the Colosseum too.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Like
absolutely. That that moment where we were both like, "Oh my gosh, is there an active like portal there?" Or, I mean, a lot of people died there. There was tons of fighting and just violence, and it was terrible.
for money, for
Things that happened.
entertainment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So side note, like that is what creates portals, intention and energy and repetitive behavior and ritual, whether you intend it to be ritual or not, you open up massive portals. And I think when we leaned into the
Right.
Colosseum, we were like, ooh, there is something there that is not good.
Right.
We are not supposed to go there.
Right.
And the Pantheon was the same way. And that's why we started
It was.
feeling into who was buried at the Pantheon.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that room that was modeled like the Pantheon that was in the Vatican that had all the gods and goddesses, that room felt
Mhm.
amazing.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Weird. So the censoring of art was definitely a thing, like leaving huge gaps in history and a lot of conflicting stories. And we noticed that throughout our trip as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really interesting, and it was museum to museum too, and even the Vatican, where the Vatican, okay, so like all the museums where they had pockets of history and story that were just gone.
Hmm.
And it was like, okay, what's happening here? And then the art wouldn't add up.
Right.
And it was like, okay, this is not original. This was created, to create this story, this false belief or narrative. And it was really interesting, the difference between the museums and then going to the Vatican toward the end, and how that was like, what the heck is this?
Dude. Oh, I can't even with the Vatican yet. And I don't remember exactly what the timeline was, but it was up until like 1200 AD that we couldn't find information, or we couldn't or was it 500? I don't remember, but there was like a huge gap, and we were like keeping track of when art was created and
Yeah, it was
stories.
like 300 to 500 or something like that. There was like this massive gap, massive.
And you could feel it and you could see it,
Yeah,
and we couldn't find the answers. And then it's
right,
like I feel like this is to be continued, this story.
for sure. Yeah,
So that was interesting. Then we went into the Temple of Vesuvius, and we were in the basement, and that was like a really cool. Let me think. So that was the place that overlooked the forum that we went into eventually, and we were like,
yeah,
"Oh, cool, we're up here now."
yep.
Um, and while I was in that place, I had a deja vu moment of me appearing to myself and saying, "You need to start writing down your dreams in a digital document." And then I looked at Rebecca, and it was like I was looking at her at a different time and space. It was like a total Back to the Future moment, but it was spontaneous. Um,
Yeah,
so deja vu for me was like fucking nonstop, not only with you, but with other people, other tourists, and places.
right. That was
Right.
crazy. Like, didn't we just see that person? Like, we've been walking for an hour now, and we passed that person an hour ago
What do you think? What do you
down
think
this
deja vu is?
one-way trail.
Right.
What's that?
What do you think deja vu is?
Hmm. I'm not sure I've thought that deeply into deja vu, but I feel like it could be a few things.
Mhm.
Excuse me. Um, for a long time I thought it was like a confirmation of like being in the right place at the right time, like on the right path. And I feel like some circumstances, yes, but
Mhm.
others is like time travel, like
Totally.
timelines, you know,
Yeah.
experiencing multiple timelines. Yeah. I
That's
mean,
what I'm starting to feel like it is
which
too.
could be viewed as, confirmation of being on the right path. Who knows?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
But that location was like a real time warpy thing for us, I think.
It really was. It was like all of it happened. It does anyways, but it was like all of it was happening all at once, but we were experiencing all of them in real time. And it didn't it was almost like, there's more here than meets the eye.
Right.
So what we were told it was like, no, I don't, like, there's more to it. And then when we found that display of the god who predated Zeus,
Right.
found in the basement this giant sculpted god with lightning bolts in his hands, supposedly.
Right.
It was like that was really intriguing. Like, okay, okay. Which also brings us back to like the originality of
Mhm.
the gods and that foundational piece for sure.
I kind of, as we're talking about this, I'm kind of reminded of how it feels like in that moment, and considering the way we felt like we had been there before. Like,
Mhm.
you know, is it possible that we left information for ourselves, that we left
Yeah,
imprints for ourselves, that we're there like experiencing then and now, and trying to integrate them together, and that's one of the reasons we were called.
absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
I feel like a lot of locations are like that we feel called to visit. Like
Right.
we have that echo there, and it's almost like begging to be brought forward, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it very much so, because I feel like, we even went up on the Palatine Hill, which
Hmm.
is, very much where the humans were residing. And both of us were like, oh, yeah, this is cool, but like, let's go. Like we're not here for the human stuff. We're here to remember and experience the like our piece, like the giant's piece, see how that fit together.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
Palatine Hill was part of the forum, but it did not feel the same. It had such a different
No.
energy signature.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did go to forum multiple times, by the way, because the first time we went, we missed a whole bunch of stuff, and it was hilarious what we missed.
Right. Like how did we miss an entire day of exploring this place?
So weird. Um, yeah. Oh, okay. So I have another dream that happened while we were in Rome that was like, I'll call it like a medicine dream. And this entire dream was showing me about being there was a man that hit me every day, once a day, just like a hit on my back. And over time, it became an acute injury. It became like a deep wound that was very painful. And it was the same amount of damage as like an instantaneous blow. That's very hard. Like think car accident hard damage. And the importance of if you do something the same way every day, whether it's good or bad, you will end up with as deep of a wound or a foundation, like whatever it is that you're doing. In that case, it was about a wound. Um, but in that moment, that also felt like a very significant message for both of us,
Yeah.
remembering that every little thing matters, even if it's not brutal in the moment.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It was pretty significant for me because even prior to coming, um, there were things coming up as far as like, the boundaries that I'm setting with trying to um, build my business and, all these other aspects and realizing that I'm not actually the reason that, it feels like everyone around me is not respecting my boundaries is because I'm not respecting my own boundaries, like within myself. And, the my journey with chronic fatigue and chronic pain and fibromyalgia, Epstein-Barr virus. And I've spent the last few years, doing my own personal growth work and walking the path. And I haven't experienced the pain like I had before. And basically pulling the wool over my own eyes as far as like, oh, it's totally gone now. And it's like,
Mm.
well, no, actually, this is bringing me back to your experience with the one blow being just as bad as small increments over time is me disconnecting from my body and not nourishing my body and um doing the small things like a small walk even though it's just around the block, but doing those small
Mm.
things every day in order to have that connection with my body and continue with the healing process. I basically stunted everything in suspension. So I wasn't feeling the pain, but I also wasn't continuing to heal my body. So my body's over here still, on the verge of illness when my spirit and my soul connection is over here floating around and it's doing great. And that's where I'm at. So
Mm.
it was like this realization with my inability to, you know, do all the walking and all of the standing that we had to do in Rome. It's a massive city, and realizing my limitations because of my disconnection from my body every day. And like that realization of like, I created this, like, This limitation is like because I have not done this over time. And now I have to like go in and figure out how to reverse this process.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that because before we left, we had talked about like walking and all that. I love walking around Europe, and we had talked about like the ability to walk, and we had a misunderstanding about it, and that led to some really hard conversations in Rome. Um and so yeah, tell me how that unfolded for you in such a big city with some limitations that you weren't even necessarily aware of, and then the infection too that occurred.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the conversations prior to Rome, like, coming from my lack of experience and knowledge as far as like, anywhere in Europe is like
Right.
literally all walking, which I know now. But I'm also, I was grabbing from prior to being as ill and disconnected from my body. Like I didn't have those limitations and feeling like I had completed the healing process and I was doing well. I didn't see myself as having those limitations. So being there, you know, having our first day walking from our Airbnb, which is outside the city. So walking through the town into the city um, was like the wake up call of like, oh shit, okay, yeah, I'm not where I thought I was. And it brought up a lot of frustration and anger within myself. Like, oh my gosh, like I did this and now I have to like now I have to feel it. And now I have to deal with it and now I have to do something about it,
Mm.
you know. And that first day I mean we were there for 2 weeks and it
Yeah.
started that first day. So every day that we went out, I had in the back of my mind of like how far am I going to be able to go? Like I'm sleep deprived, I'm tired, I already don't have a lot of energy because, that man has been hitting me on the back, but only that man has been me not nourishing my body. And this is the price I have to pay for not paying attention to that.
Mm.
And so it was a very internal battle with that and anger. And what was it, like 3 days in, we're sitting outside on the porch and I got mosquito bites and they were insane mosquito bites and they blew up and opened me up to infection when in reality it was like this festering like anger. Like it was like, the mosquito bites were like you are vulnerable
Mm.
because you have not, you know, been nourishing your body. You're vulnerable. I get the bites, I open up. Now I have this massive cellulitis infection that I'm dealing with, and I have to find a doctor in Italy to convince over video and take pictures of my red, swollen legs that are in excruciating pain. The wind blows and they hurt. Um, yeah, just pulsating for days. And even after we got home, it hadn't completely gone away. So I did have to uh, go to urgent care
Wow.
and do another round of antibiotic. So
Yeah.
it was the thing. And it was interesting that everywhere we went, all the bus stations and everywhere, like there's nowhere to sit in Rome. Like there was no relief whatsoever for me at all. And it was like, those moments where the inconsistencies in the transportation left us waiting for like 45 minutes for a bus or like until we decide to walk to another bus station and try it again. And it was just like, I'm screaming and dying inside because I'm in excruciating pain and like I look normal. So why am I feeling like this? Just like with that past wound with being diagnosed with fibromyalgia, where you go to multiple doctors and they just tell you you're depressed and here, take these pills for depression and you'll be fine. Like it's all in your head, you're making it up, type of thing.
Right.
And so, it was like that, like, ugh, nobody sees how much agony I'm in right now.
Right. Oh my
I'm just
God.
trying to sit and stew in it, and I'm like in excruciating pain. Yeah, so it was intense.
It
Yeah,
was intense to witness too and to like be present for, because it's like, you're in this situation where you're here together, and here I have like one idea in my mind of how my trip to Italy, which I've been dreaming about my whole life, is going to go. And I'm here with like my best friend, and she's struggling and nothing is going the way it's supposed to. And I just want to go out and walk like the entire city, and having to deal with frustration in myself too. And this like, hey, I agreed to be here with this person. Hey, I really care about them. Hey, I can see they're struggling. And I can also want these other things at the same time, and I need to make a decision about how I'm going to handle that. Like, how are we going to talk about it? How are we going to make sure there's enough rest? How am I going to work through my own frustration? Because it's not about her, it's about my expectation of the trip. And having the ability to talk those things over was so fucking priceless. To have someone who can meet you in those conversations and have those hard conversations, and also take space when we need to take space to like digest and process. And I've never had anybody like that in my life, like not even partners, so that was like a whole other element of the trip that was really unexpected.
game changer, really. I mean, had it not been you and I, like it could have broken a friendship, like
100%.
absolutely, if both of us could not meet each other
Right.
in
And
the
the
way that we did. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It was that intense.
mhm.
Yeah, but both of us knowing, like, when we get back to the Airbnb and it's like, okay, it's time to just like breathe on our own and like have our time, and we'll come together, in an hour or so. Yeah, it
Totally.
was it was vital.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And I think that's where it's also important to be so in tune with yourself, your environment, and the people around you. Like, ultimately, we want to travel like this with other people. We're going to talk about that later. And what does that mean? And what does that look like? And how do we facilitate those interactions of, I'm
right.
struggling and I'm frustrated and I'm processing this, and we can use this to transform, or we can use it
Absolutely.
to fucking break it, you know?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing about that, your physical
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to Catholicism, like the timeline of Catholicism. So one of the threads was like Catholicism. How did we get here? How did things happen? What was the order? Because we felt this like really strong, pure God energy, I think, while we were there.
Right.
And then we had this experience with the churches where every church felt different, right? Okay. And why did we go into so many churches? Let's talk about that first. Turns out,
Yeah.
what, 2025 was the Jubilee year?
Really, right? Which happens what, every 7 years?
25. No,
Oh,
25
25. Oh my gosh, that's even worse.
or 50 or something. Yeah, no, it's not frequently.
No. Yeah. Like the odds of us being there. Yeah. Um and so it's every 25 years that they open what they call are the holy doors of each church, and everyone gets to go walk through them, right?
And
And
be
then
purified, right?
yeah, essentially. And then what was the theme was chosen this year as forgiveness,
I think that's true. Yeah, I just had to look up the Jubilee
which
to make
was
sure we were right.
also kind of ironic. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
And
So
it really was.
we looked up all the churches that had holy doors, and we were like, all right, we're gonna go to all of them.
Right. Yeah. Why not?
Why not? We're here.
We're here.
Yeah. But what I thought was crazy was how different each basilica felt in every church. Like the range of experiences that we had. So talk to me about your experience at some of the different places.
Yeah. Honestly, at this point, most of the churches felt very similar to me. When we walked in, it was really restricting. It was very difficult to like get a deep breath. It was almost like you were made to feel shrunken and squished and like this spiral of chaos is what it felt like for me. And it was like, oh, and it didn't feel good. It was like started like in your head and it was like this really pounding, like gross feeling. Um, that's how most of the churches felt like to me. It was like really restricted. Like I couldn't wait to get out of there. Like, let's see everything so we can leave.
Right, right.
We
Except for
walked through the holy doors. We did our thing.
the San Clemente, I think, was the one that was different. That was one that had the pagan church underneath it.
It was
That place was
amazing.
fucking cool.
That was probably my favorite place. Like, it was so interesting how different it was walking into that. It was actually expansive and it was like, there's magic here. And those ruins underneath the church, the pagan ruins, were just like, oh my gosh, I just want to camp out and like see what happens, see what comes through.
Yeah. Yeah, was it there it was the god that starts with an M, right? It was one of those shrines down there.
Mm, I think you're right. I think you're right. I can't remember the name.
Okay. I'll have to look that up later. Yeah, so there was some like shrine in the basement and allegedly they used to like not was it castrate or slit the throats of bulls or something to offer
Right.
to the god. And I didn't feel any of that.
Right.
It like
No.
there was no brutality involved.
Right. It was almost like yeah, let's bash the pagans.
Fucking weird. And that was one of the cults too. I'm gonna look that up real quick. Um, that was one of the cults too that we found a lot throughout Rome, and it was hard to get access to them,
Right.
right?
Yeah, it was very restricted and hidden for sure.
Yeah. I wish we could have done some private tours. I had no idea that that stuff was going to be so cool. Mithrium,
Oh, yes. Yep.
Mithrium, the Roman cult of Mithras.
Right.
Yeah, there's something more there too that's been hidden. I hope we're gonna find it somewhere else in our travels.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, I did take notes of my experience with the churches because they were also very different.
Uh-huh.
So like in St. Mary's, I felt like an echo chamber. Like my prayers would have gone up, but they would have echoed right back to me. They were not going to heaven, whatever that means.
Right.
Um, the San Giovanni Laterno, I felt very confused. My eyes were really heavy and it was really fuzzy, almost like
Mm.
I had taken a sleeping pill. Um, when I left that one, I felt like we needed to take a bath, and I started doing research for like bathhouses, like a spa,
Yeah.
so that we could get bathed because I felt so dirty. Um, and then Paul outside the wall, I felt crushing in my throat, especially was really intense. Oh my God, when we walked into St. Peter's Basilica, which I think was the last place we went, and this was while the Pope was being voted on, like it was so crazy. It was so crazy. I
That was
felt
crazy.
we were marching to our death, and I turned to Rebecca and I was like, I don't know if I'm having a prophecy right now or if this is metaphor, but I feel like we're marching to our death. And the wave of people that like brushed us into that church was insane.
Literally. Literally. Yeah. Like ushered through, like cattle herded.
Oh my God. It was not good.
The
Not good.
Vatican felt like that.
What the what?
The Vatican felt like that.
Oh, is that what the Vatican felt like to you?
Well, when we first got there and we were going through all of those like separate, like when we first started going through the museums,
Yeah.
And we're like, hey, let's go upstairs or whatever. And we were in that Egyptian, like there was a lot of Egyptian artifacts and Etruscans and all of that. And then we hit that room with the massive, like, humanoid cats. And then I lost it in that room and had this whole, like, remembering and crazy emotional release, trying not to bawl my eyes out while people are flooding in to see all this stuff. And I'm like, ah.
Dude,
And
that room surprised the shit out of me. Like it
it
felt
was
like the
intense.
most real room in the Vatican.
Uh, Really, truly, I was not expecting to see that kind of stuff, but it makes sense. And the artifacts were just mind-blowingly, like, perfect.
Mhm.
Like the best of the best. Like, yeah, the money
I
is
think it's
here.
more than that. I think they're more accurate. Like there was so much truth in the Vatican along with so many lies, don't get me
For
wrong.
sure. For sure.
But like I've been to museums around the world and I have never felt that way walking into an exhibit.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I feel like everything was really, really good. And it was like insane. And I don't even know how we got caught up in it, but I remember being in the room, Immaculate Conception, and feeling like, oh God.
Oh yes,
And
that
then
one.
all of a
Okay.
sudden we get carried away in this tornado and we're like ushered through this like chaotic funnel of just people and like weirdness. Like that's when the art got weird and it
Mhm.
was confusing. Like, why is this even here? What is it trying to tell us? Like that room of maps, like
Yeah.
that hallway that goes on forever of maps. And it's just like, what are we
Well,
doing?
let's back up here just a second. So
Okay.
when we got into the Vatican, so it turns out the Vatican is like it's a one-way maze basically for the most
Yeah,
part. And you have to be careful where you enter or you will miss certain parts of it. And we entered into the Egyptian wing first, which is where I think was the most profound area of the Vatican. It felt very real, very true, very
for
high
sure.
vibrational. And I want in a second, Rebecca, I want you to talk about like your connection to some of the stuff that you saw, like on a spiritual level. But when we went through the Vatican, we crossed a point where everything changed and everything felt different. And that was the room of the Immaculate Conception. And it was like, to me, it felt like a big hoax or something. Like as soon as we walked into that room, I was like, oh, this room is bad. Something is wrong. I felt super sick. And then it was like the crowd warded us through the rest of the place and nothing else made sense or felt real afterwards.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It was so
Yeah.
weird.
No, it was weird.
Yeah, talk about
Yeah.
like your connection to the, as far as you know, to the Egyptian stuff without giving away like too much information. Um, I don't know. There's certain shamanic things I like to keep private for like mystery school stuff, but your connection to what you saw in Egypt.
Without saying too much. To me it was like a remembrance of the whatever a past life or something, being in some hierarchy, as another being, so not human again,
Right.
but also not giant.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So it was very emotional, and it was almost like in tandem with this life now. So very much like connected to like what is happening currently,
Mhm.
with Earth, whatever. But yeah, it was emotional. It was really hard to keep it together because it was like this overflowing like want or need to go home.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And just before we left for Rome, we had talked about, and I don't know, are you allowed to talk to the beings that we were talking about? Or are you allowed to talk about that race that we were talking about?
I don't know. I guess I never thought about that.
Oh,
I don't see why it would be a problem.
okay. So like before we went to Rome, we were talking about cat people,
Uh-huh.
right? And
Yeah,
I jokingly said I wanted to get like somebody to take pictures of cat people, like a little stuffed animal that traveled
right.
into Rome that I couldn't find, by the way. Um, and that was a lot about what you felt in that room, right? Like that
Right.
connection.
Right. Yeah. It was I said space cat, and like the pictures you came back were like in astronaut uniforms, and I was like, not quite. More like royalty, like
Yeah,
very regal, giant humanoid cats, and this race of extraterrestrials who I'm very connected with. Yeah, absolutely. And it was definitely that feeling walking through that room.
Egypt. Yeah. Okay. Now, do you feel particularly drawn to visit Egypt in person?
I always have been, yes.
Okay.
And every
What?
time I do, every time I do, the feedback is it's so dangerous there.
Ugh. I mean,
Okay. Isn't it
on some
dangerous
levels.
everywhere though?
I mean, I categorize the places where women can't walk alone to be like extra
Mm,
dangerous or needing to cover, you know. We're gonna have to
yeah.
add that one to the list probably.
Yeah.
I didn't, for me personally, I didn't feel anything in the Vatican that was especially uh resonant in that way like I did at the St. Mary's Antigua. Um, except for the room with the god statues that was supposed to be like a pantheon replica. I felt really connected
Yes.
to some of those gods, like I knew them.
Hmm.
Um, but I want to talk about the theme that I noticed while we were there is that in the Vatican Museum, we saw more women than we saw in any of the other museums.
Oh
Like
my gosh.
there were so many women, which is crazy
Yeah.
to me because we think of all of that as being anti-women,
Right. Right.
right?
Well, and it quite literally is. It was, any picture of or representation of the feminine whatsoever was completely void in all the churches we went into
Right.
until we did hit the Vatican.
Right. And
And it was
what
like,
what is
I
that?
mean, there were even like um, magical beings, like otherworldly beings represented, but none of them were female.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was it was interesting for sure.
And then we saw that statue of the woman in Pope's robes, which was
Right. Like
there's never been a
what?
female Pope.
What?
What I know, there was no label on this statue. It was just like there.
Right.
We were like, what the heck?
Exactly. Exactly.
There was a
Yeah.
lot of that. A lot of interesting things we saw had no plaques,
Right.
but they had
Right.
the
No
space there.
information. Hmm.
Yeah, that was weird. The other thing that really sticks out to me about the Vatican is we were supposed to go through the Sistine Chapel as part of our
Yes.
tour, and it was closed because they were voting on the Pope.
The
And
conclave was happening. Hmm.
right while we were in the Vatican. Um, and I actually do want to circle back about how you and I both felt about that situation. But right outside of the entrance to the Sistine Chapel that you can go into while you're still in the Vatican, if you look up on the ceiling, there's a bunch of
Oh,
pictures of what are they
the
called?
reptilians.
Reptilians.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? Yeah, I've
Yeah.
seen reptilians before. I see certain people who have them in their bloodline. Like I can recognize them.
Yeah.
Never in a million years did I expect to see them in the Vatican.
Right. Yeah.
So interesting.
Like just before you go into the Sistine Chapel too, like a
Right.
sacred part.
And I wonder what the Sistine Chapel would have felt like on the inside because the Vatican
Right.
was essentially a museum, right? It's not really a church. So it makes sense that it felt different. But yeah, I'm sad we didn't get to go in there.
Right. But
Hmm.
then again, was that, does it fall on the list of places we're not supposed to be in?
Right. Right.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, and let's talk about too, like so the Pope that was um voted in, he was the first
Hmm.
American.
Mhm.
Was that correct?
Right.
And
Born
he
American. Yeah.
Yes, right. Born American. And then one of the big things that he believed in was also missionary work, and like the whole sainthood thing is what came up big for me during that process. But
Right.
just the idea of us being there felt really significant energetically. Like the Pope's seat is
Right.
vacant and the whole place is in limbo as they vote for a new one. And here's this new one, and it felt like something had shifted.
Well, yeah, it brings us back to that need, that new distribution of power,
Mhm.
and his, ideas when he came in was like, you know, giving it back to the people
Right.
and empowering the people. And that was just like, what? When we got back to the Airbnb and watched his speech, it was like, oh my God, Nadia, what the heck just happened? Like,
Right? He was voted literally
you
right
were
after we
there.
left. Or yeah, while we were there, like they
Yeah,
announced it right afterwards.
yeah, yeah,
Wild.
exactly.
It's so wild. So, from a shamanic standpoint, I don't think anything is unconnected. Like it's all connected. The timing of all of this, you know, Rome being on my bucket list for years and years and years, us being these people who are asked to go witness Catholicism as a story, and we're having remembrances of way back when Catholicism was established. Like, what is this?
Right.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. Nothing by accident for sure.
no, no, it was cool. Um, Next, I want to talk about the Etruscans. Like,
Oh my gosh.
I think that was the first. That was actually the first museum we went in
It is.
the day before. Yeah, we went to the forum.
Hmm.
Yeah, tell me, like, from your standpoint, how did that feel for you? How did that, yeah, get put together in your mind?
I'm not sure I've completely put it together in my mind, honestly. I feel like there's so many missing pieces, but also it having that be the beginning, it felt very significant to the trip and to what we were trying to put together
Right.
or what was being presented to us. But it was absolutely our first place where I started noticing that there are gaps
Hmm.
and there's erased information and then plugged in, narrative here and there, was something I noticed right away. Uh, yeah, just what comes to mind is them being known as like the keepers of water, and like, the water flowing through these aqueducts, from ancient Roman times, and it continues today. Um,
Dude, the water
just
theme
all of
was
those,
hilarious.
just all of those aspects. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I noticed the same thing, and we went to some ruins further away from Rome. It was our only like leaving Rome for an excursion situation, where we got to go to another place where the Etruscans were, and that was fucking cool and also weird when we got to that one last room and we were like, wait a second, what?
right.
You
Yeah,
remember?
yeah. Like, what is this? The massive, like, gigantic round tomb right in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so
that,
the
like, trench dug for drainage or, flood drainage. Like, what is this for?
yeah, I don't remember what that place was called. So we went to an old Etruscan, I don't want to call it a
Necropolis.
necropolis. Okay, so
It was
where
the necropolis.
all the people were buried outside of Rome. That was its own whole adventure. Like from a high level view, Etruscans were basically the indigenous people who were there before
Right.
the Roman Empire started to be built. And they were clearly like very magical people. Water was their jam. And an interesting thing about water here, too, there's water flowing everywhere in Rome. You can get free, clean water that comes down from like the mountains or something. Um, And to have it like running throughout the city and find fountains anywhere to fill your water bottle was cool. But Rebecca and I had co-facilitated a ceremony. It's got to be almost 2 years now. I had a series of ceremonies that I hosted in Washington, and each one had some kind of water catastrophe. Like, I'm gonna tell the story because this is too cool. So we had this ceremony, and Friday night the water wasn't working for one of the guys there. Every time we went to go get water from the fridge, like it wouldn't come out, and we couldn't figure out what the problem was. It was weird. And we have this storm rolling in the next day. And so we're all like a little bit on edge. And then late Friday night, the water stops working. And I'm like, oh shit. Here I have like this group of people I'm supposed to be stewarding through a big experience. And I call like the local people who come check on the water, like whoever those people are. They come out, it's almost midnight, right? The guy cannot find the valve shut off, which is half a mile down the road from the house because it's a big house on a hill. And he like brings out his metal detector and he can't find it. Eventually we find the door that you open up to find like the water valve crank that sits at the street that goes up to the house, right? And it's been cranked shut. But like it's clear that nobody has touched this water valve in months. Right? And were you out there when he was looking for it?
I wasn't out there, but there were 3 other people that were witnessing this. Yeah, for sure.
Everybody saw this and he's like, that's weird. It's turned off. And he turns it on and then he goes home and we're like continuing to hang out as a group. And then the water starts to go off again. And I'm like, what the hell? I call the guy back. He comes back and he's like, that's interesting. There's a burst, like something has burst here. And if I don't turn it off, it's going to flood. So we have to turn the water off. We have to pivot for the ceremony and go to a different location because there's an ice storm coming and we can't use the water, right? It's a house of 15 people. We won't have a toilet to flush. So we make the decision to relocate and we sit down as a group and I give everyone the opportunity to like vote on it. I'm like, listen, something is happening here and we have a choice. We collectively make the decision to move except for that one guy who the water wouldn't work for.
Right.
Right. And then before we met as a group, I was like pulling tarot cards and I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? I'm freaking out. And I pull a card and it's a group of 5 monkeys sitting on a hill with a river running at the bottom of the hill. And like 5 seconds before that, somebody had just cracked a joke about monkeys. Oh my God. And so we had that experience. And then I had a ceremony where like the septic tank overflowed and the toilets overflowed and water. And so to have this come up in Rome was like weird and super significant.
Right. Yeah. Super significant. Yeah.
Because water we talk about working with the elements in shamanic practice, but to really understand what that means and how big it is, it's not something you can teach. It's like you have to experience the relationship in real time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So magic, there was some magic around water in Italy for sure.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the fact that they were like the indigenous people, was pretty significant.
I feel like there's still a lot more there to uncover in terms of information and knowledge and wisdom. I feel the call to go back to Italy, and I feel like they're going to be somewhere else that we go to.
That's funny that you say that because I remember walking through the city and you're like, well, we have to something because I don't plan on coming back here again. And I'm like, yeah, right. You're going to be back here.
Not Rome. I like maybe not Rome.
Mean.
Yeah.
No, for sure. Yeah.
Though I would go back and do like one of those private tours where you get to walk along the ancient Roman road where they have all the tombs and the secret place. I would love to do that.
Yeah.
I always say I'm not going to go back, but there's just so many other places to visit.
Yeah. Italy's a thing.
All right, let me see what else I have on my list. Oh my God. Okay. So one of the days we are standing outside of the St. Mary's Church because We wanted to go there. We had some extra time. Turns out that's where the Pope was buried. And so the lines there were insane. We got off the bus, or maybe we walked that day. I don't remember. We were fucking tired. It was late. Um, and we're standing out front of St. Mary's, and we realize we're never going to get in because the line is crazy. And I start to break down internally. And I take out my phone to like distract myself while we're waiting for the bus, and I have an email from the twin flame connection that I mentioned in one of my earlier podcasts. This man who was like my best friend for 25 years, and he writes me this really bizarre email, and I show Rebecca, and of course she knows who he is, and we're just like, what the fuck is happening here?
Seriously.
It was crazy. And for me, it was like a real moment of, are you this person that you're stepping into now, or are you the person who's connected to this old relationship? Like, what is coming up for you? What is your reaction here? It felt like a real choice point. And that's never to say that you can't connect with a person you've been connected with in the past, because you can both be different people and reconnect, and take a different route together. But just the timing and the significance of it was kind of hilarious, 5 years, and you pick the 2 weeks that I'm in Rome.
Right. Right.
It was, yeah. And we didn't end up connecting. Like, we tried, and I sent him this email, like, purging like a whole bunch of thoughts and emotions, and he was like, yeah, it looks like you got out what you needed to get out in that email. And then we haven't spoken since. Yeah, it's really interesting. So that happened for me. Let's talk about Naples.
That's what I was thinking.
So my
Oh,
trips, I
Naples.
like to go places for 2 weeks. That's like the magic number when you're working with land. You have to be there for 2 full weeks. But we were like, I don't think we want to stay in Rome the whole time. Let's do a side trip for a couple days. And so we were going to go to Naples and Pompeii and Herculaneum. Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about Naples and your experience when we got off the train in Naples.
Well, I mean, I think it started with the train, honestly, for
Oh.
me.
Oh.
Um, it was good because I felt like, okay, there isn't going to be a ton of walking and I'll get to rest, and like I was really soaking that up. And then we had pretty much an empty train car that we were sitting in, which was great until this group sat right next to us, and we were like the only people on it. There were a few other scragglers, but like, we're like grouped up, and I forgot my headphones. So the entire and the ride was like what, an hour and a half
Yeah.
ish. So for most of that, I'm like enduring this conversation thinking like there's beautiful country out these windows. Their little shade is mostly closed, so they can't even see this gorgeous view of the countryside that we're driving through. And they're talking about politics and a million other things that are not interesting. And I was like, oh my gosh, why did I not bring my headphones? Right? So I was like, Nadia's in her own world, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like screaming inside. So, um, but finally getting the headphones, and then I was like, okay, I can relax and like actually like enjoy this experience. And um, it felt very much like we at that point was like, okay, now we're in ceremony. And and stepping off of that train, it was like, okay, okay, okay. And then we walk through the train station and step out onto the street, and it was this instant like, woof, okay. Everything about it was different. Like, are we supposed to be here? Like, what is happening right now? And I felt like instantly on guard. Like I had to pay attention and really make sure that we were aware of our surroundings for whatever reason. It wasn't like it was much different than Rome, but the feeling that I got walking out was like, whoa, okay, this is like high alert place. And we're walking toward our Airbnb, and I'm thinking like, okay, don't panic. It's all right. Like, okay, these people over here are shooting drugs, and there's these people over here, and like, like alleyways the width of humans, between houses and like cars and stuff up and down. Like everything about it was like, what the heck are we walking through right now? And I'm trying not to panic and like voice that I'm like, low key, like on high alert.
Right.
And you're like, I feel like someone could have warned us about this. And I was like, you think? Oh my gosh, that was just so crazy. Yeah.
It, I've been to a lot of places that would be considered dangerous or
Yeah.
developmental countries. I have never felt as unsafe as I did in Naples. And like I walked around, old world Peru at night by myself, like as a woman. Um, yeah, nothing has ever been like that. And we went to go eat and it was like, okay, maybe I'm just being judgmental. I am making assumptions. And then we went up to the Airbnb, which overlooked, a little street corner. And we got in there and we were like, there's no way I can sleep here. There's no fucking way. This is not safe. This is not safe. This is not safe.
Yeah.
And thank God that you and I were on the same page because we were already invested, like financially.
Yeah.
I made the decision to get our Airbnb in Rome straight through 2 weeks. So like we still had the Airbnb in Rome. We were just diverted to Naples for a few days. I got a decent Airbnb, it had good reviews. I got us tickets to Pompeii and Herculaneum, like train tickets too. But really having to own that feeling and the fact that I was going to lose money and that again, it wasn't sticking to my fucking plan
Right.
was hard. It was really
Right.
hard.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. It was that tipping point of like, okay, do I express that like I don't feel good here? Like something's not right.
Mhm.
Like you never want to say that something's bad is going to happen, but like when it feels like something bad is going to happen, you don't know what. It could be anything. Like, I mean, who knows? It could have been like, the water shut off, or who knows? Like, we don't know. And to like just I feel like we both just kind of knew as soon as we walked into the place that it's like, okay, I know I'm not going to sleep. Like, I'm not going to get any sleep here at all. Like, it
Totally.
just does not feel right. And it was that tipping point of like, do we make ourselves sit in this discomfort because we did invest money in this? We have plans and tickets and, you know, all of these things. And, is it part of, the lessons that we're learning? And, or do we honor this feeling that we're feeling, like, of unease, and
Right.
make
This
this decision to walk away?
that and then that's it's like the moment of deciding whether you're going to gaslight yourself or you're not. Are you going to say, listen, Nadia, like rationally, you're going to be fine. I'm
Yeah,
sorry that you're feeling uncomfortable. Or are you going to honor it and be like, nope, sorry, it doesn't matter what I have on the line. What I'm
yeah,
feeling is this. And I trust myself enough to say, yeah, that's all I need.
right. Yeah,
And that
absolutely.
I think that was the medicine in it for both of us. I don't even think
For
anything was
sure.
going to go wrong.
Right. Exactly. Well, yeah, and it's funny too because then, we make that decision together,
Right.
but then I'm going through this like shame spiral as we're walking away, like, oh my gosh, like, did I influence this decision and it's not right? Like, what
Mm.
we're, are we going to be fine? Should we have stayed? Like, you know what I mean? And
Yeah,
it
I
was
didn't
like,
know you were feeling that.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, it felt good. Like, also interesting that we had to wait so long for our train ticket to leave. But standing there and feeling very confirmed and firm in our decision to not stay
Mm-hmm.
was solid. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in what other situation, I know for me, like whether it's a spouse or a parent or a friend, if I had said, like, I'm sorry you invested this time and money, but I'm not comfortable. Like, there's often no place to do that.
Right. And that's exactly it. Had I been with anyone else that I could think of there, it would have been I had to shut down how I felt about it and sit in it in silence and suffer regardless of something going wrong or not.
Right.
It was that feeling that I was feeling that I couldn't get myself to honor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
lesson right there, I think, is so priceless.
Huge.
Right. Right.
Seriously. Yeah.
And then when we got back that night, not only was it the first night that I got to sleep, but it was also those epic thunderstorms that felt like we
Oh,
were in the middle of the fucking heavens. It was so
oh my God.
crazy.
Yeah. Seriously, like encompassing. It was wild.
Hmm.
Yeah. But also, regardless of the storms, yeah, I actually slept that night and it was like, okay, we're home. It was like that, okay, we're here. Like we're here. This is home.
And everything for me after that Naples experience, Rome felt real for the first time. It felt like I was immersed in it instead of observing it from the outside. And that
Mm,
was also really, really interesting.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I agree with that. Honestly, I think that helped me personally cope with our journey the next day that we decided to go to the necropolis on a
Mm.
Sunday. Not knowing if we're going to get a ride anywhere and having to walk, like, but that feeling of like, okay, we're good, we're safe, it's okay no matter what happens. Okay, we're walking through this town, um through neighborhoods, and we're fine.
Yeah, I think maybe you're right. Like breaking down the walls to give us the space to do that because that was the only free day that we had. And, we went to this kind of remote town on a Sunday, and it turns out that public transportation doesn't run the same amount of time on a Sunday. Neither do taxis. And we had a couple moments of like, oh shit, we are not going to get back out of this town because like the sun was setting,
Right.
not in a dangerous way. There was just nowhere to go.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Like, are we going to be sleeping on this slab of pavement, like in front of this restaurant under their cover tonight?
Dude.
Like, it seriously felt like that for sure.
Well,
And
we
the
tried
fact that, like, we
we
tried to find buses, we tried to find the schedule. We didn't see any buses, we didn't see any taxis. There was like no there was no like indication of getting out of there at all. Like we just straight up we had to walk until we came to that point where it was like, are
the
we
highway.
really going to walk on the freeway right now? Like it's not like the freeways here in America where there's places to walk. This is like no, not even a bicycle.
Right. And then every time we tried to call a taxi, they would quote us some
Yeah,
ridiculous price or nobody would pick
or
up.
not answer. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Eventually, one showed up and we made it back. And I think it was just like ultimately more of the same lessons of go with the flow and stop trying to control anything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it was almost like we both had to simultaneously release the fact that like we could possibly have to like sit right here and you know until tomorrow. I'm like, and then all of a sudden a bus goes by and we're like, wait a second, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try a taxi one more time. Ended up being what, $8 to take us to the train station.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden there's just this flow of public
Taxis.
transportation driving right by us
Uh,
after hours of seeing nothing.
you can't make
Wild.
it up.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was cool. I mean, it was an adventure for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely an adventure. Yeah.
Um, there was another, yeah, along the lines of like power. I think another interesting thing that we kept seeing was the mythology of Romulus and Remus, and that being arguably a prophecy or truth, and like the story of two emperors who were divided with Rome, and then the fall of Rome, and then the power was transferred to the church. And
Right.
somehow all of this started with the rape of a Vestal virgin. And it was like so interesting. And it still feels unclear, but still like, ooh,
Right.
there's something here. I felt super connected to the Vestal Virgin stuff, like that's part of my history or
Mhm.
something. Um, but I was disappointed not to see a lot of detail about it,
Right.
you know?
Right. Yeah. There wasn't a whole lot of information.
Um, Let me see. Oh, and then like, do you remember the end of the Vatican tour? The part that everybody freaking skipped?
Are you talking about all of like the library
All the
and
shaman stuff.
oh yes. Yes, all the medicine stuff from different tribes and different parts of the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was like, whoa.
So we went through the Vatican and had that experience where it was like magic and truth, and then the Immaculate Conception, and everything changed and everything felt bad. And
Right.
we exit the Vatican, and there's like an extensive walk to get to wherever you're going next. And like off to the side are all these exhibits and other artifacts and stuff. Nobody is stopping to look at them, but immediately I can see that they're significant. And it's shamanic artifacts from all over the world, from
Yeah.
tribes everywhere, just fucking hanging out in the Vatican.
Yeah.
And I think we spent a long time there.
Good amount of time looking at literally everything. Yeah. I mean,
That
stuff
was,
from Africa, stuff from everywhere. It was probably the coolest thing we saw in the Vatican.
and also the most unexpected. Like, there was
Yeah.
so much medicine there.
Right.
Why? If the Vatican is so evil, if Catholicism is so evil, why? You know?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's evil, but I think there's a whole storyline that we're missing here about why it started and what it's holding. And like, I think that for me, like the feeling I got was that the Catholic Church are not keeping secrets; they're holding on to secrets.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I don't know. There's
Well, for the lack of mass understanding,
yeah, and I think it's possible it's gotten
essentially.
twisted in the meanwhile, but like
Yeah.
it felt clean and it felt true. And there's also this like healthy masculine piece of protectors and containers and
Right.
carriers of this divine something, but there's a piece missing.
Right. Yeah. It was
Yeah.
absolutely like, here's the truth. It's been here all along. We've never hidden it from you.
Right. That's a conspiracy thing too, right? Like how
Yeah.
things need to be out in the open and truth. Um,
Yeah.
and the real question is then why isn't it accessible? Like then why is the church here? Why
Right.
is it
For
run like
sure.
this?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Super interesting.
And then the flight home. My God, the flight home. For me, at the end of the trip, I'm always like totally ready to go. Like I'm tired. I want to sleep in my own bed. I miss my everybody's. Um, but leaving Rome was by far the hardest place to leave. And the entire plane ride, I think, I cried. Like I cried tears of reverence and sacredness and God. And I felt like I had really truly connected with myself and with God for the first time. Um, and then I felt a lot of like past life stuff. I felt a lot of stuff connected to a man who's kind of been orbiting me, and this this thing that happens every time I come back to the country. It's like I feel the grid of the country and I smack up against it and I'm like, fuck, I'm back here. I don't want to be here. Um, yeah, I'm here for a reason and I'm supposed to be here. But the transition back is always the hardest part for me. How was that experience for you?
Yeah, it was difficult. Yeah, like you said, I was feeling very conflicted. For one, I was exhausted and I just wanted to get the fuck out of there and go home and sleep in my own bed. But I also just wanted to like be alone and
Mhm.
like just be alone, like not go home to my family. um, yeah, it was really emotional, but I also felt like I had to like not cry as well because then we'd both be bawling on the airplane and the woman that was like checking on you every 5 minutes, I was like, I'm not beating her, I swear, it wasn't me. Like she was really concerned.
I'm sure they don't see people cry openly all the time. It was very awkward, but also like I couldn't stop.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Um but also like physically it was extremely uncomfortable. I felt very restless. My body could not sit still because it just felt like creepy crawly, like I just had to keep moving.
Mm.
um and then of course the extended pain still from the infection and fatigue and just exhaustion, so I got no rest on the ride at all. So it was like
Yeah.
a continuation of, yeah.
Yeah, the first couple international trips were like that for me as well.
Yeah.
Because I think there is just so much like medicine and stuff that's still pumping through you, you
Hmm.
know.
Oh
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
I want to talk a little bit about like, so first of all, people of the podcast, if you've made it this far, um, I do liken this travel to be like an ayahuasca ceremony. And it is like an extended transformational experience where you're clearing, you're healing, you're seeing new doors open, you're having a multidimensional experience. It's very big. It's so much bigger than just traveling, as maybe you can tell so far. But it's in the talk of the aftermath that I think is most significant, especially Rebecca, with what you told me is happening for you physically and emotionally and like the doors that are opening. And I want you to share about that so that we can talk about it.
Are we talking about my physical body and stuff like that?
Like, yeah, like what's post Rome, there are things that
Mhm.
have shifted, things that have cleared
Mhm.
up, realizations you've
Yeah.
had. Yeah, like let's hear about it.
Yeah. Okay. Um, Initially when I got home, my thought was like, I never want to fucking do that again. I'm
Totally.
never doing that again. That was so traumatic. Um, and I was like, I took a good 2 weeks when I got home before I went back to work too, and I only work 2 days a week, but whatever. Um, when I went back to work, even after that, it was like I found myself having a really difficult time talking about Rome in a positive way. And it's not like it was negative. It was just like so much was still unfolding for me and I was still digesting it all, that it was just like, I don't know how to explain this to people. So it was a really spiritual experience. you know, I can't really elaborate on that right now. Um, and it took I want to say it was a solid month before people would ask and I could, have a solid discussion and actually say that it was like a really profound, amazing experience that like I can't wait to do again. Um, so a lot of stuff that unfolded when I got home, um, with my relationship and with that discussion that we had before I left, wrapped around my partner taking care of his father and him living in the house, and the dynamic that we're living with, and coming home to having him have taken action and like made phone calls to these places, and like figuring these things out without having to have my approval or my opinion, which is fine, but like ultimately this is your decision, not mine. So it was really nice to have some separation with that situation, and seeing him take the action and stand up for what he needed to do for his own sanity and for his um life, which I'm tied to, but it isn't my decision, and the decision needed to be made. So that was really good. um Another thing is my very significant digestive issues that I've had like literally all my life. And they disappeared when I was in Rome. And I hadn't even realized weeks into being home that they hadn't returned, and haven't really returned since. So there's been a couple moments here and there, but to the magnitude, I'm not having like the dramatic, like scary, do I go to the hospital issues like I've had. So, somewhere in Rome, that like I'm not even going to try to speculate as to where. But that happened too, is, my whatever it is that I was able to release in Rome or decode, made it possible for me to heal this part of myself so that I could um, continue the journey in, uh, healing my body and connecting to my body and nourishing my body and getting ready for the next trip so that I don't have these limits, or as significantly. Yeah.
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 Yeah, and you've kind of felt more connected to doing that work on your body and taking the
Absolutely.
walks and
Right.
changing the diet, or you're about to go through a detox, right?
Yes. Yep. I'm gearing up to do a pretty intense detox. At first, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go, do all this research. And I did one thing, and, had that reading with this woman that scans my body. She's basically a medical medium and other things. And that was kind of like sent me on this spiral. But then it was like, well, wait a second. Like, is this even exactly how it is? And again, I was reminded to, trust myself and tap into what I need to do for my body.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm currently doing. But it
Yay.
also, um, you know, I've been working towards or hoping to do my own podcast for the longest time. And it prompted me working through and doing whatever it is that I could do to conquer this fear of being on camera or speaking and putting my voice out there into the world and saying what I have to say. Um, so it's been, since then, it's been a work in progress, but actively and overcoming that fear for sure. Yeah. So there's
I
been a lot of things unfolding.
I think a huge part of even being able to do that is identifying there is a problem, right? If you're so disconnected from your limitations or a certain piece of how you're doing physically or emotionally or whatever it is,
Right.
if it's not brought front and center, you can actively avoid it. Like that's what we do every
Right.
day with all of our shit. And traveling, I really love how it brings stuff up to the surface. And it's like, do you want to look at this? Are you ready?
Right. Yeah. Well, and with me, I feel like if it's coming to the surface, then I don't have a choice. Like I'm looking at it and I have to. And the choice is, do you continue to suffer?
That's exactly for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
After Rome for me, I think I was only home for like 3 days before I had to drive to Oklahoma, where I picked up my 14-year-old from a very abusive, terrible psychiatric facility and have since been engaged in the most brutal custody battle ever since. So, right before I went to Rome is when I filed paperwork, which was just to get child support or spousal support. Like it wasn't even about custody yet. That whole thing blew up as a result of Rome. And that was significant because I was a single mom previously, like 15 years ago. And that was the reason why I entered the partnership that I just got out of, was to not be a single mom. I needed somebody to rescue me from being a single parent. And so coming back from Rome and then having to basically like drive multiple states over to get my kiddo and rescue him. Yeah, it was a whole experience. I couldn't even really talk to Rebecca about Rome until a couple weeks ago. And then I was like, okay, I think it's time to do the podcast. And as soon as we started talking about recording the podcast, we both got very clear messages that our next destination was Romania.
Yeah.
So we are going to be traveling to Romania in fall of 2026. Dates are not specified yet. We're doing some preliminary research on location, but I can tell you that what I'm feeling about Romania is lost knowledge, that there are beings that lived there in the unseen world and in the seen world who had great wisdom for us, and it's been lost. And it's asking to be retrieved. So it will be a very spiritual experience. I've never been to Romania. I've never been to any of the places I travel to. It's the fun of it. But I have been friends with people who are from there. And I think it's going to be interesting and pretty profound. And we are opening up this trip to other people. So I do have a spot on the website to apply to travel with us. Yeah, it's not for beginners. So I'm not just going to open it up to anybody who's interested, but I really wanted to talk about Rome and talk about doing this together because this is going to be a part of my practice and my offerings. And I do hope Rebecca will also be a part of that. So we can steward people through this transformational experience, which is fun and playful and sometimes challenging, but like absolutely life-changing.
Yeah. Life-changing for sure. Yeah.
Yes. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. Yeah, I'm excited that, we got the message to go to Romania, and I'm definitely feeling the same. The underlying forgotten magic for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I'm also feeling like it's going to be quite the adventure.
Yeah, in like
Yeah.
a weird way too. I think
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm hesitant to even put words to it right now. So
Right.
I'll keep it to myself, but here we are. This was our fun Rome adventure, and thank you for joining us on the podcast. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah. Thank you, Nadia.
Thank you.